So today, on my commute, I had a topic that I recently started thinking about, very recently. And I'm traveling. My setup is a little different, but this topic was kind of focused on the understanding of maybe worldly progress, worldly scientific progress, as it relates to religion. For me, some background. As I've said in my other videos, I'm a Muslim. I'm a religious Muslim. I would consider myself a religious Muslim, but I'm not a scholar or anything. I'm not even a theologian. I'm an engineer. I'm a very my field, my trade is very technical. My job is very technical. I grew up, with the love for science and love for technology. It was my world. It's how a lot of people from my country, right, from the Desi countries are brought up. Southeast Asian countries are brought up. So, growing up, I would go to Sunday school. Like, I had religion as a part of my life, and then I had everything else as another part of my life, right? Like science and school and career, right? It was a very separate bucket. And for the longest time, it was kind of going into two different mindsets, right? When I was in the masjid or I was praying, it was all of a sudden, it was, religious mindset, right? Religious devotion, praising God, worshiping God. And then when I would go into school, and I would go into the worldly life, I would have to almost turn that part of my brain off, and focus on the worldly things. Now, the challenge with that is, as I've gone through life, now I'm working in the industry. Alhamdulillah, I'm working in the industry. I have a good job. It's an engineering job. So I go to work, and I don't really think about religion. I just don't. I would say that I think about religion when I get home, when I'm praying, when I have the ability to. And my whole life, it's been very confusing, right? How do you reconcile those two things? Because when you listen to, for example, a Islamic lecturer or Islamic or a religious scholar, right, on YouTube or something like that, the majority of them are not scientific background. The majority of them are scholars. What they do is they research. What they do is they're in the theology business. This is what they do. They preach. So they live and breathe spirituality. They live and breathe religiousness. But for someone like myself, when I look at those people, and every time they're preaching, they state that the ultimate form of a Muslim, of a religious person, is to essentially constantly be worshiping God, right? Constantly worshiping Allah. Like, the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed, you are in complete worship of Allah, right? And that is like the ultimate form, right? But what's confusing is, how do you, as someone who is not in a religious field, attain that? You can't, right? Unless if you're in a religious field, and unless if you are a preacher, how do you make money in that way? Now, I feel, and this is my theory, I think that Muslims, in the past, have had ways of reconciling worldly progress with religious progress or religious spirituality. But modern Muslims have somehow segregated those two, right? Because if that wasn't the case, there wouldn't be any Muslim civilization. We wouldn't have had the great scholars of the Abbasid era, the great Islamic scholars in astronomy and medicine, right? The genesis of modern medicine comes from Islam. The scientific principle, the scientific method comes from Islam. We wouldn't have had advancements and innovations in those areas if Muslims didn't genuinely believe, if that was a true achievement in the eyes of God, right? But what I'm trying to understand is how they perceive science and how they perceive worldly progress as religious progress, right? the obvious one, and this is one of the reasons why a lot of people are in this field, is humanitarian stuff, right? You go, well, if I help people, if I work in a nonprofit, if I'm cooking meals, and if I'm doing things for the humanities, then I'm benefiting not only the world, but I'm also benefiting the religion, and that's great. That's an obvious one, but not all fields are like that, especially not in a capitalistic corporate world. I don't feel that way. Why would I have any reason to feel that way, right? In an engineering world, right, in an engineering capitalistic world, we're developing products, we're talking about cost margins and performance and market share, and this is how we define metrics. Obviously, we're helping people, we're advancing, human life, but how we define success, there's a lot of very cold hard facts that are non-religious, and those are important, right? If you're not working on an idea or on a business that is lucrative, then you're not really helping anybody, right? So that's an area I'm curious to hear what people think, right? I know there's people out there that are, I'm sure have found this balance, have found this, this middle ground, and are able to reconcile scientific and worldly progress with religious progress, and able to point to how they grow their spirituality and grow their worldly success and not feel guilty about it, right? And that's another thing, is the feeling guilt, right? When I'm at work, so when I go to the masjid, right, it's Ramadan right now, and all the lectures, like, stay up in the masjid all night, and that's great, but pray a lot, it's very important, and I love that. I love to do that, but I've never been able to do that. I can't. I have a job, I have to drive to work, I have a family, I literally, if I just stayed up all night, or if I was in the masjid all the time, I wouldn't be able to function in a society. It just doesn't make sense. And there's just this constant feeling of guilt of how am I supposed to function as a human adult while making spiritual gains and not feel horrible, right? I know here's this thing, I'm not doing anything wrong, right? I'm not working in a field that is a morally bankrupt field. I'm working in a moral field. I'm doing good work. I work hard. And I earn an honest wage. But every time I listen to an Islamic scholar or go to the masjid on a Friday prayer, they talk about how the essence and success is defined by spirituality. Just praying, reading the Quran, learning about Islamic history, and that's kind of about it. There's nothing that identifies those metrics in the realm of the world. So yeah, that's my video for today. If people have thoughts on this, if they have ideas, please share them with me. Bye.